And we should be in Joshua right now. And I'm just not getting to the review of Leviticus, but I promise that I will get caught up on the reviews. I had a lot going on. So Leviticus, the word Leviticus means of the Levites. And as many of you remember, Levi was the third son of Jacob. And so the tribe of Levi came from Levi. And if we recall, the Levites were the one who killed the brethren when God was angry and Moses was angry when the children of Israel made an idol and they burnt the gold and the image of a calf came out. They were, God and Moses was angry. So the Levites, Moses said, who's on the Lord's side? And the Levites stood up and they killed the brethren. Also, if we go back a little bit, we will see in Genesis how God chose Israel, and in Exodus, he called them out of bondage, out of slavery in Egypt. And now in Leviticus, God is calling his people to be holy. He wants them to be holy because he is holy, and he's calling them into fellowship with him. Moses is the author of Leviticus and the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And some people may say, how did Moses write, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth? Evidently, he got with God and got the information on what happened in Genesis, or it was transferred to him from somebody who knew God or was with God. So, okay, Leviticus is of the Levites. And when we look at Leviticus, we see the different types of offering. And I'm going to briefly go over some of the different types of offerings. One of the offerings was the burnt offering. And the burnt offering means to ascend. This offering ascended up to God. It was the complete destruction of the animal except for the hat. The second type of offering was the grain offering. This offering comes from grain, and it couldn't have yeast in it. A small portion went to God, and the remainder went to the priest. The third type of offering is the peace offering. It was a meal share between 2 people before God in fellowship. A small portion was burned, and the rest was given to the worshiper and the poor. Then we have the sin offering, which provided atonement for sin. This was for sins in ignorance or unintentional sin. So it was for sins that you didn't know you did, and then you realized, like, oops, I messed up. So you would provide the sin offering. The trespass offering was needed when a person unintentionally violated the Lord's holy things. And then we see Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu. We see how they were killed by God because they authorized, they presented strange fire before God. And how many of you know when God requires of us to do something a certain way or bring something a certain way, we need to follow the Lord's instructions. So Aaron's sons did not follow what was required, and so they died. And Aaron was not allowed to grieve his sons. He had 4 sons, and the other 2 sons was not allowed to grieve the 2 that God killed by not combing their hair or tearing their clothes, or else they would have gotten killed. So in Leviticus chapter 8 through 10, we see the holy priests, which was the mediators and the intercessors, and that was Aaron and his sons. Aaron was the first high priest. So the priests came through the tribe of Levi. They came out of the tribe of Levi, but only priests came from Aaron's lineage. So we see how God wanted the people to be holy because he is holy. Also, we see some of the festivals that were celebrated in Leviticus. Before I get into the festivals, we see the blessings and the cursings and the feast of the Sabbath and how they were supposed to rest on the seventh day of the Sabbath. We see the holy practices. We see, once again, the holy priests, the mediators, the work of the priests, the punishment of the priests. We see food regulations, private uncleanliness, public uncleanliness, the place of sacrifice, the law of the blood, the law of sexual activity, the law of loving your neighbor, laws concerning sins. We see so many types of different laws that God gave the children of Israel. And if they broke a law, something could happen to them, or they had to present an offering or something. And how many of you are thankful for Jesus? Jesus, the Lamb that was slain before the foundation of the world. And because Jesus is that ultimate sacrifice, we don't have to burn animals and different things, because we're under a better covenant. We're under a new covenant with Jesus. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law. When we look at these laws, we see different curses that came when you broke the law. But we thank God that Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, having become a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who hangs on the tree. So the curse of sickness, the curse of poverty, the curse of all these different things, Christ has redeemed us from, so that we don't have to remain in poverty or sick or whatever these curses brought upon us, but we've been redeemed by Christ. So when we look at some of the festivals, we see the Passover. It was the festival that was celebrated that reminds the children of Israel of their exodus out of Egypt. Remember, when they applied the blood to their doorposts, the death angel passed over. Then we see the unleavened bread festival, and that was followed immediately after the Passover, and it lasted a week. And then we see the festival of first fruits that took place in the beginning of harvest. It signifies Israel's gratitude and dependence upon God. We see the festival of weeks, which was celebrated 50 days after the festival of first fruits. Also, we see the Feast of Trumpets, which is known as Rosh Hashanah. It marked the beginning of 10 days of consecration and repentance before the Lord. And we see the Day of Atonement. And this was the day once a year the high priest went into the holies of holies each year to make an offering for the sins of Israel. And again, I may have mentioned before, only the high priest could go into the holies of holies to offer atonement for the sins of Israel. And so that's going to sum up a brief little short summary of Leviticus. It's of the Levites. And so I will see you next time very shortly to go through Numbers. And I promise to get